क्योंकि मैं भी ईमेल आई थी तो उसमें लिंक था तुम
Good morning.
Let me mute Dr. Said, just a second. Let me mute everyone. And Dr. Said, can you unmute your mic?
You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. So it's 8:30 here at Casablanca. It's not like in Qatar. So I'm very delighted to facilitate this live open online discussion in presence of smart education professionals at different organizations. I'm sure if you have accepted to attend this online discussion about project-based learning, because not only you are passionate as I am about learning and teaching, but also you advocate the use of innovative, pedagogy in and off class, to promote effective students' learning. I would like also to thank Malavan for inviting me, facilitating this online discussion, because I really appreciate this, this mode of delivery that takes a form of, of discussion, which means I'm not going to lecture, but I will try to create, an environment where you smart people and I could exchange some, knowledge, some ideas and best practices about, innovation in education, specifically about project-based learning. So let's, at least as I mostly say to my students, get ownership of the few knowledge we'll be constructing during this this session. So, well, how shall I be handling this session? I will certainly go through some slides that will present, some advanced knowledge about Pba, and also share with you some of my insights and, challenges I've been confronted to during my professional experience. So it's not going to be, a training session in a technical term, because we don't have much time to cover all the technical issues. However, at the last of the presentation, I will provide you with, some resources to let you dive, if you want, into the subject. I will stop talking from time to time, allow you to inform the discussions, of course, with your experiences and your questions. But let me introduce myself. So my name is Said Namar. I'm Doctor of Education from Walden University. So I majored in education leadership. I'm working as a Director of Executive Education at the International University of Casablanca. During my 22 years of experience, I have discovered and used Pba as a teaching method. And let me tell you, the results were amazing. So the results were very impactful, on my students. So I have used Pba with undergrad, with postgrad, and in the last 5 years with K-12 students, in the context of a master degree in education science, of which I'm the director of the designer, and that we offer here at the university. So the learning summary of my experience is that project-based learning, is highly impactful, but it's at the same time also very challenging to deploy at any institution. So let's see together, why it is impactful and how it is challenging, right? So let's have that journey together. So let me share my screen with you. All right. Do you see my screen?
Yes, doctor.
Right. Well, this is the title, overarching title, Project-Based Learning for Schools, a transformative learning process that prepares students to solve complex real-world problems. So we will go through the agenda. Some of the components that Malavan has already communicated to you in the flyer. So what is effective teaching? Because I believe before moving to understand what is PBL, we should understand the foundation. What is, effective teaching and learning? Why project-based learning? How is Pbl processed and assessed? And what are some of the challenges in using project-based learning? Right. So what is the, the learning objectives of this, free discussion? I hope that at the end of this hour, we could get out of this discussion with at least, a solid background and a solid arguments to convince ourselves and our, colleagues and the community of teachers that PBA is a highly effective methodology if you want to promote effective learning in our classes. Okay, so we will try to promote and try to present as a technology-enabled pedagogy. That means that it is not a place-bound, specifically now that we're navigating COVID-19 pandemic, but most of all to scale up its deployment in our institutions. I'm sure that when you innovate, sometimes it's only one or two teachers or instructors that are trying to innovate. So what we want to do is to try and have the argument, come out with the arguments to convince as much as colleagues and instructors and faculty to deploy the same methods in their respective schools. So this is at least the learning objective behind this discussion. Right. So let me share with you the quotes of that guy. I think you know that person here in front of you. This is Mr. Albert Einstein, right? And these quotes that, according to me, summarizes the whole and the main issues about education. He says, education is what remains after one has forgotten what one has learned in school. So I will stop some minutes here and we'll, give you the floor. And I will ask some questions and exemplify some good teaching, because, good teachers are those who ask more questions than provide answers, by the way. So, so let's try to, reflect on this. And I will ask you just to reflect on this quote. Just 30 seconds, I will give you some questions, maybe just to invite you to start participating in this discussion. Well, let me now ask the question to help you, come up with an answer, right? So what are the best learning situations you still remember up to date from your past life as a student? Could you remember what are the best learning situations you still remember up to date? I mean, we all have been students, so please just tell me.
Oh. Hello.
Yes, hello.
My name is Shah. I want to answer your question.
Please, come on.
The best learning technique which I remember till now is the presentation methods that teacher give us. Like they give a topic to present or a project to make. Through that, whatever I give presentation or whatever I make, it's still in my mind.
Great, great. Okay. Come on, please. Other answers?
I would like to share my experience. May I?
Yes, please. Yes, please, of course. Come on.
This is Samina Sumra from Pakistan. I would agree with the lady who spoke earlier that some of the best learning experiences were based on group work. The teachers used to assign a certain topics. We were given some time and later we had to present the topic as a group, and the learning that took place, not just contextual learning, not just learning based on a certain topic, but soft skills got developed tremendously.
Right.
Those were some of the wonderful experiences.
Great, great. Other experiences, please.
May I speak, please?
Yes, please.
I'm also Samina from UAE. I remember the learning which happened when we were given, first of all, I think conducive environment is very, very important. When the conducive environment is given to the student, where you feel free to speak and act or participate. where you are not scared of participating or speaking. I think those were the moments where I learned a lot. And then, of course, wherever we were made to participate in that thing, like it was not only a lecture given by the teacher and we were the passive learners, we were just listening to them, where we were asked to participate either practically or verbally. So those were the topics which I must remember till date. So this conducive environment and participative thing, these were two very important things which at least played a very important role in my education life.
Great, great.
Bayan, would you like to share? Please go ahead.
Yes, please. I would also like to comment that some of the best experiences that I remember from my school study, during my school study, is the one that I used my hands in. So hands-on or hands-on experience was always very memorable, and I can relate to several situations. Even some of them I can depend on as a teacher now. I can adopt in my teaching, and I find to be very effective with my students as well.
Okay. What else?
Can I speak, please?
Yes, please. Come on.
Yeah, good morning. This is Aisha from Oman. Hi, Malavan sir. How are you?
Fine.
Very
Yeah.
well, Aisha. Very well. Glad you're back.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So, sir, I agree with the ladies who spoke so far. Like the project-based learning, actually, it helped me a lot during my school and college days as well. Wherein we used to get a particular topic on. We have to speak, and sometimes we would not be able to understand the lecture given by our lecturers. And when the topic were given, we were supposed to go through it, learn through it, and then when we were supposed to speak, we should be able to very much fluent in our knowledge, wherein there will be counter questions from the other classmates as well. So this really made me understand well the project based learning, and it is really helpful. I do the same thing for my students here, and it is really helpful, I must say.
Great. Great.
Thank you.
Welcome.
May I add something?
Yes, please.
Other wonderful experiences that I remember are the classes out of classrooms, learning outside classrooms,
Okay.
not inside the classroom, in a completely different environment. Like as a business student, many a times we were asked to go and visit different companies and different organizations and meet people at different levels in the organizational hierarchy. So what we learned from them, and simply observation of the organization itself, certain things which I have never forgotten so far. So out of the classroom, learning has been very impactful.
Great. Great. Okay. So probably let me move. I mean, just reflect on this question and move to the second question. Okay. Well, the common point, the converging point among all your answers is that, nobody talked about, a course discipline. Nobody remembered, a course of math or physics or history. Okay, so let's keep that in mind and move on. And later on, we will understand why. Let me now ask a second question. Okay. Now, have you ever asked yourself, as a teacher, an instructor, or the head of department, the following question: how do I teach? And how effective is my teaching? Just to be real, this is not, just sometimes you could teach, but you never ask yourself that question. So let now just do some learning, okay? Reflection and learning. So have you ever asked yourself, how do I teach? And how effective is my teaching?
Yeah, I want to add something.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I always, I have been in education in very rare years. I don't have much experience, but little bit experience I have. Whatever I had learned or I have improved in my education is the question you had asked. So I always do my self-assessment after teaching, after a year or after 2 years. that what is the impact of my teaching to the students. So this make me very, you can say, polish my skills a lot. And I always change my strategies every year. So I often ask whenever, so I come out in from the class or after a day, end of the day, I always seen that what are the difficulties I faced and what are the challenges and what I am missing and what I have to improve. So I always keep these questions in my mind whenever I finished my day or a week at least. So I do this. So it's no doubt, it's really helpful to increase your knowledge and understanding more about the teaching and learning and assessment sort of.
Great, great.
May I answer?
Please.
Well, how good is my teaching is like I usually evaluate myself after every lesson. And how do I know like my teaching is affecting? Like I see from my student response. What I do is like I explain a topic to a student, then I just give a scenario, and I expect them to answer. If they are like answering successfully, they're giving correct answer, and yet they are able to describe my scenario. That's how I understand that the student has understand the topic. I don't go for the topics in the like the books. I give similar situation, and if they are able to answer that, that makes me feel that I have delivered myself completely.
Great, great.
I want to answer this question.
Yes, please.
And I want to add a proverb here that in the beginning of my career, someone told me that proverb was, tell me and I'll forget, show me I remember, but involve me and I'll understand. So since the beginning of my career, I've been following the same proverb in my teaching, that I try my best to involve my students through hands-on learning or through project-based learning so that they understand that thing the best. So I think this is how I know that my students are learning the best.
Great, great. Other answers, suggestions?
Yeah, I would agree with everybody who have told so far. Even in the similar situation, I believe in concrete teaching. That is, if we are just teaching verbally, of course, in today's world, it is not going to help anybody, neither the students, nor we are going to get any outcome. So the concrete teaching, for example, if you are teaching science and we are teaching some plants in the topic, I feel that I must show the concrete material for my students in order to where they'll touch, feel, see, observe, and then they put up their thinking skills in that. And how I expect that my teaching was up to the level is, I want children to be taught in the way that I was learned. If I'm satisfied with my teaching, that whatever I'm teaching is reaching to the student, if whatever I'm teaching was, if I can understand it, then my students have definitely understood.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Please. Okay. Okay. So, well, I mean, my God, I mean, we have very smart, smart professionals here. I mean, attending this this session. I'm very happy to have all these answers, and probably it looks like you are very highly achievable, and you know very well. I mean, your job as a teacher. So probably what would be bringing in now in the future in discussion is, I mean, been telling you is that to support that with your what you've been doing in your practice with some of the knowledge and some of the frameworks and so on. So if let me just screen or just a bit a moment. So thank you for all this input you brought in. In fact, scholars and practitioners have been struggling to find appropriate answer to these questions, by the way. So they've been struggling for the last 2 centuries. But since the 90s, the last 90s, there has been a so-called, learning revolution that shifted, our interest from teaching to learning. Okay, it shifted our interest from the teacher to the student or to the learner, and that gave rise to what we call today the learning paradigm course, the whole framework. So, okay, that shift has, of course, triggered significant impact on, how we design curriculums, how we deliver our courses, as you explained in a moment, how we assess even our teaching, and even how we manage and lead our schools and institutions. So in brief, if it has jeopardized the role of schools, and education, that's it. And if you want, it has jeopardized that traditional role of education and schools. So they change in the way we process education in our institutions, is a result of some pressures from the external environment. So let's together discover what are these pressures, so as to understand why we're pressing for more innovation in education. So let me once again get back to share my screen. Right. So there has been pressure, as I've been telling you. Okay, so first of all, there's been pressure from some components. So the first component is the external environment. Let's start by technology, right? So technology has transformed, our lives, the process of production, but above all, the process of teaching and learning. Okay, so it has transformed, the role and the function of teaching and learning. So today, probably let me say it in the other way. In the past, teachers, go and search and compilate informations, look in different books, and they get back to the student with the knowledge. But today, when you get to class, sometimes your students know better than you. So you don't have to, to repeat what students could find already in books through technology. So technology had made knowledge accessible to them. So we have to find other ways, to teach our students. Another component is also, the students. Students, now the profile of our students today is quite different from mine, for instance, or from Malevins. Students today are a wide generation. They born with the internet. They know how to use technology. So they are multitask. They are allergic to hierarchy and so on. So they want to get engaged. They want to be motivated in class. They don't want to get and stand and listen to you. They have to be, to use all the styles, sensory movements to learn. So they are very, very demanding, and they are highly skillful, intelligent, right? Now, when it comes to employers, so employers today, they are asking for, a new profile of the workforce. They're asking, yes, of course, people with some technical skills, but more skills that will enable, the workforce, to adapt to unpredicted situations, like what is happening now in the COVID-19. You see, so we want people that could adapt, that could innovate, that could create, and could get rid of, getting back to the quotes of Albert Einstein. Okay, we have to forget about the old content. Now we want to adapt to the situation today, right? So employers are watching, are highly, watching the dosage of skills in your profile, specifically what we call soft skills or more transformative skills. Okay, you have parents also. Parents now, when they come to enroll his son in a school, the first questions he will ask you: so what added value you will bring to me? How do you differentiate from the other schools? So you have to bring something new. Don't tell, well, we have a curriculum like this and we have a degree. Now we no more in a degree-based education. We're more in an experience-based education. right? So you have to innovate and come out with a new learning configuration. When it comes to funding also, you know, funding is one of the main issues that face, you know, institutions, public or private altogether, by the way, okay? For instance, in the States, you know, there have been cuts in funding that around 50%. So schools and universities and academic institutions are obliged, you know, to innovate, to look for other, you know, sources of funding. So they're obliged to, you know, to innovate, to be less traditional. And they back to seduce, you know, the clients, right? So all these pressures now all together, and could be other pressures, you know, have pressed for, you know, to jeopardize the traditional curriculum and for moving for more, you know, innovative pedagogies and pedagogies like Pba and others. The second component is the new knowledge revealing how do we learn. There has been, you know, in fact, we have been mistaken in the past. We thought that we learn because we memorize, we understand. And we thought also that, you know, you learn differently according whether you are 60 years old or 12 years old. These are myths today. So neurosciences, cognitive sciences, psychology has, you know, shown us how really we learn. This is why we are using now these sciences as a background to justify. This is why I've been telling you to justify, you know, these new methodologies as effective teaching methods, right? I will get back to these, to the neuroscience in the following slide, and to tell you how, for instance, neurosciences has supported effective teaching through these innovative pedagogy. So all these components together, all these pressures, you know, have facilitated that shift of learning from teacher to student-centered. In other words, today we are more focused on what the student does and not what the teacher does, right? We're more concerned about what the teacher is doing. And this is exactly what you said when you answered the question. You still remember what you did yourself and all the experience you had, right? You didn't remember what the teacher did. And this is important, right? And now in this configuration, you know, the role of the teachers has changed. We're not saying that the teacher has no role. No, the teacher is still important, but his role has changed. He's no one the one who gives and spoon-feed the student, but is one who facilitates. And that creates that environment that makes you, as you said, you know, remembering all this, you know, these situations and transforming you, right? So now in this, you know, new paradigm, we are now assessing the outcomes. We are not assessing how many hours you spend with your students. You may spend 100 hours with your students and the learning is not effective. You may spend just 10 hours with your students. And believe me, the results will be amazing. So now we are more, you know, watching the learning outcomes. And for your information, today, all the, you know, accreditation agencies in the world, they have been, you know, revising their criteria, and they've been more focusing on learning outcomes more than, you know, learning inputs, right? So it's very important to bear this in mind, because as I've been telling you, when you are, you know, defending and arguing in favor of these methodologies or these pedagogies, you should have these arguments, you know, to use. Now, let me just get back to the, you know, to neuroscience, right? Understand how do really we learn, right? And this is, you know, a beautiful brain here, a smart brain, by the way. So how do we learn? Let me give, you know, a very scientific and organic definition. So learning is allowing your brain to develop neural connections and organize them into networks. Okay, so it has been also proved, I mean, in this respect, by neuroscience, that if we want students to learn, if we want them to get transformed, then your teaching or it's back to the process you're teaching, should, you know, touch or should trigger, you know, a part which is historically deep in your brain, very deep in the brain. And the way to do that is through feelings, is through emotional connection. In other words, if you want that your students learn, he has to get connected or emotionally connected with you or with your course. Right? So now we know that we feel, we learn. And organically, when you learn, okay, your brain, through the process of plasticity, right? It creates, you know, billions of networks. But when you lecture, suppose you're lecturing, and let me give you an information. You know that lecturing today represents 88% of teaching methods in the world. Let you imagine it with me. 88% of methods are limited to lecturing. So when you lecture, you're just affecting the frontal basis of your brain. In other words, it's like what happens to you when you answer the question, you forget about it. You forget about it. So we have to change. You have to change, you know, our way of teaching. So how we can do that? How we can do that? Let's get back to the two main components. First, the process, the student. You know, the student now, with respect to this definition, what we should do is to try to let him engage, to motivate him in class. The student has to desire my course. He has to find my course significant. That's important. This is for the student. Now, how I can do that? I can do that through the process. Through the process, right? Through the process, and not the content. And by the way, let me just open a bracket and close it very rapidly. You know, in this new way of teaching, in Pbl, we reward not only the results, but reward also the process. How you're going through all the steps, right? And in that process, you as teachers, instructors, and leaders, you should pay attention to two elements: the design of the course, the design of the curriculum, and then how you deliver it. How you delivering it? Is it interactive? Is it, as one of your colleagues said, part of it done off school, for instance? This is why she never forgets it. You see? So when you have these two elements, you create what we call the experience. So learning is triggered through experience. And when you enjoy a learning experience, automatically you will attain the learning outcomes. So this is, you know, here are, if you want, the how we can do effective teaching and how Pba, you know, underlies, if you want, this configuration, right? So this is grounded in research, as I've been telling you, research in neuroscience, but also in different research about experiential learning, constructivism, and so on. Now, if we agree that experience, you know, creates learning and is so effective to let my students enjoy learning and get transformed, let me suggest here some of these methodologies. There are many methods. Okay, there are, I've been citing here 4 of them, but there are many. I can, for instance, cite Pbl, collaborative learning. We'll be discussing it in a few moments in detail. Peer instruction. Well, peer instruction is also a new, you know, interactive methodology that has been developed at Harvard by a professor called Eric Mazur, that consists, you know, to let students learn the peers, I mean, each other, right? So sometimes the teachers find difficulty to explain something that is evident for the teacher, but not for the student. But the students could explain very easily, specifically meanings where they are connected to real words, right? Other methods, you can find service learning. Service learning, you know, I mean, certainly you're doing it in your school. Service learning is our project, you know, where students could, you know, help, you know, poor people through, I mean, maybe collecting donation or something like that, or some job, some project related to environment and so on. And the fourth method is undergraduate research, and this we could find it in universities, when we allow students, for instance, to do some early research, not academic research, but applied research to know about, for instance, I don't know, if you want to work in real estate sector, but we will ask students to go and do some research about, you know, the companies, the firms, how many companies, how many enterprises working in the sector, and so on, and do some undergraduate research. But all of these methods, one common point in common is experience. Students engaging in these methods will never forget this experience. Not only that, but they will get transformed. That means, what does it mean, transformed? That means that we'll get out with some, what we call, you know, skills of success, you know, communication skills, critical thinking, creativity, work, teamwork, and so on. Okay? Right, that's good. Up to here, is it okay? Do you have any question before moving to define Pbl? Please, do you have any suggestion or any remark? Do you hear me?
Yes, doctor. I think we forgot to tell them, if they don't participate, we're going to charge them.
I think maybe they are, well, maybe they are so concentrated on the on the concept presented, but well, anyway, let me move on and probably get back to you, you know, with more questions. All right, it's already 9 past 10, so let's move. Okay, so what is Pbl? So Pbl, this is a definition that I adapted from Bach Institute for Education. So if you want to go and, you know, consult the website. Project-based learning is an experiential teaching method, okay, in which a group of students, and here I insist on group work, collaboratively to resolve real-world engaging issues over an extended period of time. So this is, you know, we find all the constituents that, you know, define project-based learning, because Pbl sometimes overlaps with collaborative learning and so on. So we would just here presented a comprehensive definition to limit it and to define it. Okay. So
may I interrupt for a minute, please?
Yeah, please, come on, please.
From which age group can Pbl be introduced?
Sorry?
From which age group or grade level can Pbl be introduced?
Any group. Today we can do it at any age. Okay. It is used, you know, from, you know, for K-12 until university level. Okay. If you get to the, for instance, to the Bach Institute for Education, you find that it is applicable to all levels.
All right.
Let me tell you something very important. Pbl is a content-free process, so it's up to you to contextualize it with respect to the learning objectives, to the goals, and the kind of questions you're resolving, right? But it is applicable to all levels.
May I give an example, sir?
Yeah,
of what you've just said?
Yes, please.
Okay, sir, I have a child who I take care of for the studies. He's in the year 2, And yesterday we were doing an English concept of summary writing.
Right.
And when we speak about summary writing, usually in year 2, teachers tend to give out rules and conventions of summary writing. But when we were doing a class, the very fact is I just provided the child a link about the conventions or rules of summary writing. He saw the video, and then he was able to jot down all the rules himself just by listening to and hearing and looking at the video. And he was able to write down at least 8 or 9 points on his own by identifying them through the video and then learning the rules of summary writing himself. And then after that, a passage was given to him, and he summarized the entire passage just on the basis of what he had researched from the video. I had to do nothing, just provide him the link and just give him a platform to jot down the points.
Excuse me, you didn't
Yes.
you didn't do nothing. You have done a lot of things, and you have done the main thing. You know, this is why we are talking about effectiveness here. Sometimes we may do a lot, you may spend a lot of time with the student, and you get nothing at the end. What you did is leadership. What you did is knowledge, and you get the result. You see, you have, on the contrary, you say, I've done a lot of things. So this is sometimes some of the counter arguments people will tell you. This is why I'm telling to you, we are talking about education. I'm telling you, it's a content free, it's not discipline based. But no, this is a real discipline now. It's a science. And let's try and capitalize on these experiences or your experiences to scale up the use of these methodologies. And I will show you it is not only effective, but efficient. I mean, it will save you also sometimes resources for the school. I mean, okay, so that's important to bear in mind. Well, so Pbl is a technology-enabled...
Doctor, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
We have a question from Shabun Niza. She's saying it's becoming difficult to encourage the students, especially in a virtual learning environment due to the lockdown.
I think Pbl, its advantages, it's about using technology-enabled pedagogy. We can use also, Pbl using, distance learning, but you have to do it, in the right way. I don't know how it has been done, So Pbl, if you take the previous example of the colleague, right? It's just to give them some guidelines and then allow the students to do the job in a certain way, to trust your students. Sometimes, I don't know, but I with my experience, sometimes we do not trust also our students. We have to trust them, but we have to provide them some guidelines and some feedback too. We will get back to in a moment in how we could process, effectively project-based learning. So not whatever we do on distance learning is Pbl, right? So Pbl with Zoom, for instance, if we had time, we could now split. If you have the correct number, if you have, for instance, I don't know, maybe 20 students, we can have different groups now in separate rooms. We can have, some workshops here and there, and we can get back and share the knowledge and so on. So we could interact and animate, even using, using technology in the pandemic. So Pbl is, it's not a place bound. It's not place bound. We can use technology, to leverage the use of this methodology. So let's get back to the advantages. So why Pbl is so important, right? First, because it engages students in their learning process. So I've just said that students now, with actual generation, they want to get engaged. They want just to listen to you, right? Because maybe what you're saying, it's been discovered at home. He has discovered all what you are repeating to him. Using his laptops, doing some research. So we have to find other ways to get him interactive, or to interact with you in the course. And that's important. Now we know that engagement, that energy, that emotional connection is important to learn. So please, this is by definition is important. So please try to be this in mind and try to do whatever is it possible to satisfy this condition. Second, connects learning to the student's real world. Well, you have been, all of us had asked this following question. So why am I learning math? Why am I learning physics? Why am I learning business? Okay, so today, I think you will agree with me that most curriculum, if not the majority of them, are disconnected from the real world. They are artificial. And if they are connected to the world, I agree, but they are connected to the world of the 60s, or the world of the 30s, or the world of the last century. What we do now, we need another, skills to adapt to new environment. So this is why the students looking for what we call the significance of what he learns, creating what we call, a human and a social connection, right? Emotional connection, and now we're talking about social and human connection. And when he gets back to his parents, say, hey, mom, I've done something. He could lead a discussion with his parents about, an issue about the pandemic, right? So that means that students, finds that the course is significant to him. And that's, gives him self-confidence and self-esteem. And we know that this stuff is very important for, the development of our personalities. 3, transform students' behavioral skills. We all know today that we learn not only to develop cognitive skills, how to do maths, physics. You have brilliant people, that could solve complex equations. Employers, we have now algorithms that could, resolve very complex computing. We don't need you now. You need transformative behavioral skills. How you communicate, how you influence your, your peers and your team, how you influence your students, how you make proof of resilience, how you manage conflict, how you create, how you innovate. These are the skills we're looking for. But in my experience today, I've been teaching, probably in the MBA programs. Let me tell you something. I have students in the testimony telling me that not only their professional lives, but their private lives have been transformed completely. We have, some graduates, they quit their jobs. Now they are speakers. They do conferences. And not only one. Do you know why? Because simply in the process of my MBA, so differently from what classically has been doing, traditionally doing, I have implemented some labs, 5 experiential labs. I call it experiential labs. And each labs, they work on a real project. But in this project, before they move to the second, they should defend it. They should present it. And they develop their communicative skills. At the beginning, they may have some difficulty, but at the end, believe me, they become really highly proficient. And that really transforms the people. So this is not only science, but this is reality. Okay, so we need to train our students now for the future, because now we have the COVID-19. I agree with me that it's 1 year, please. 1 year, and still we didn't come out with a cure, not a vaccine. With all these researchers, publications, top-ranked universities, and whatever. For me, that's, question mark. How do we teach in these universities if we're not seen now incapable of coming out with a cure? 1 year. Right? So let's ask ourselves these questions, please. Now, let's move from the students and approach the aspects related to, to curriculum and to faculty. Number 4, project-based learning ensures what we call interdisciplinarity. This is a very important concept, by the way. Education is a tradition, some defines it, that is wrapped in bureaucracy. And education has been a victim of specialization for many years. We get specialized courses in different ways, compartmentalized courses to help to understand, to help it I mean, to make it possible to be taught. But we never get back to connect things together. And now we find difficulties to connect things together. And every faculty teacher is now delivering his course. And the learner, he couldn't find his way in that puzzle. So the best way to do is Pbl is a process that could really link discipline together. So you could, for instance, in a Pbl, and while moving in the project, you can link some of the goals to the subject area in math, or to the subject area in social science, or a social area in geography. So when the student gets into the course of geography, he says, oh, this is what I'm doing in the course of my teacher, for instance, working in Pbl. You see what I mean? So interdisciplinarity is a big challenge we've been confronted in education. So now this Pbl could really help us to connect, different disciplines. Number 5, Pbl does not profit only to students. That profits also to faculty and to teachers, because Pbl is a content free, but the questions refers to the questions the driving questions of your project refers to a specific domain of expertise. So you could find, for instance, teachers, besides developing expertise in education, they're developing expertise in environment, or in a specific sector of activity in the industry, right? Or in engineering. And with respect to what I've been saying previously about the artificial character of curriculum, faculty or teachers could update their knowledge. Okay, they could update, they could contextualize their knowledge. They could provide better examples. Sometimes we have a lot of professors and teachers disconnected from the real world. I'm so sorry, but it's a reality. You see, you have a lot of publications published, but nobody can understand. And he has never been in, he's never worked, in a company, in a real, real world projects. So this kind of pedagogy is also profitable to teachers and faculties. Number 6, optimizes teaching costs. As I've been telling you, one of the most important issues of education is costs, is funding. So sometimes, I give you just a simple example. You have a program, and we all sometimes, we estimate costs with respect to how costs, contact hours. If I make, for instance, this program it take me 100 hours, and you multiply for, I don't know how many it costs, $100 or $1,000, it would cost X. But with this Pbl, and we know that the contact hours, if it's done in a traditional way, it's not going to be effective. So let's take 50 hours contact hours, and maybe 20, 30 hours supervision. Okay, that will be paid, but the 30 hours plus the other hours where the students will be doing his homework and so on will be for free, not for free, because it's a student who is working. And now we are saving in both. We are effective and efficient at the same time. Okay? And the last point is differentiate your school. Why? So if all this together in school, you have to differentiate your school. We use in Pbl. Myself, I'm differentiating my MBA, for instance. I'm differentiating because using this methodology, and I even published an article about it. Okay, I'm differentiating my school because we are innovative. We're not traditional, right? We're using this method and other methodologies because we want to promote your students. You promote the learning of your kids and so on. This is the best way to differentiate your school if you want to be less traditional. Well, let me ask you now a question. Let me just have some rest.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Could you repeat point number 6? Optimizes teaching costs.
Optimizes costs. Okay, I've been saying that. Okay, sometimes we have been traditionally thought that the contact hours, okay, lecturing is the best method to teach. And if you design a program, say for instance a master degree, and you say that the master degree, okay, we requires around 1,000 hours contact hours. That means that contact hours means the students, teachers has been here to talk to you, and the student is here with you in class, right? So the 1,000 hours, you should pay the teacher, you should pay the instructor the 1,000 hours. But we know that the way you're doing it is not leading to effective learning, because you're just most of the time either lecturing, and at the end you may probably ask your students to maybe to do or to work on a thesis. And for me, that's a lot of money. I can defy the same instructor, the same master. I can say, okay, instead of 1,000 hour contact, I will pay only 600 hours to the teacher. Contact. I said contact. But the efforts, the general efforts that takes for the students to do or to pass the program requires, for instance, 1,500. And if I pay 600 hours, okay, I will redirect the 400 hours on the students' work, because it's students who is going to work, not the teacher in class. That means students will be working at home, working off classroom, right? And the learning will be effective because they are doing, they are learning, they are artifacting themselves, instead of having the teacher passing through 1,000 hours just talking and having no effective end. And this way, you are saving money. You are saving money, and you are having your teaching effective. These are questions that have been documented and researched. By the way, I mean, I'm not inventing anything, because today there's no way after lecturing and so on. So you have to come out with a new methodologies where you let students work. But when students work, they work home. You're not paying them, so they work home. They work home in cafes and so on, and the efforts is sometimes big. Let me give you an example. In my MBA, for instance, for each project, right? The projects, what I pay for the supervision of a teacher, the professor, is 18 hours, 3 weeks. But each student works around 60 hours, and statistically speaking, the number of hours per group is around 300 hours. I couldn't pay 300 hours, but sometimes in other schools maybe they could pay it, but I pay only what the teacher could supervise. But the 300 hours has been worked by the students, not the professor. You see what I mean? And in that way, the whole projects, if you want, in terms of content, in terms of hours, corresponds to the 300 hours of the work of the students' home and in the office and the cafes and so on, and the university, plus the 18 hours I paid for the supervision of the professor, right? So this is the way you could optimize teaching costs. I hope I had made myself clear. I don't know if I made myself clear, but otherwise I could get back to that point later on.
Thank you, Doctor.
Differentiate your score. As I've been telling you, it's important to differentiate your score to make a difference, because there's strong competition, specifically now that the private environment is invited, to compete with the public sector in education. Now, let me ask you a question. How do these advantages, talk to you?
I think the first two ones are more important. If I look at them from my perspective, from my school's perspective, they are more important for me.
Yes.
The last two ones, maybe optimizing on teaching costs will not be a priority at all. And when it comes to differentiating the school, uh, yes, we might be able to differentiate the school in the short run, but in the long run, hopefully, when many more schools adapt this strategy, differentiating my school from others would again come at implementation of something new that has evolved in the education sector.
Right. Right. Okay. Shall we move on?
Yes.
Oui? Yes, come
But
on.
I want to ask one thing, Dr. Said. Um, does it coexist with the existing curriculum? Can it coexist with the existing curriculum? You see, currently we have students whose parents went to a traditional education sector, and currently we have teachers who have, let's say, 10 years of experience. They also attended schools and university with a traditional teaching approach. So changing the mindset of those teachers and the parents is a big challenge. So as long as we have the traditional mindset, uh, that is very challenging. And we cannot reap the fruits of interdisciplinary curriculums and project-based learning.
You're skipping to the point, to the next point about challenging issues about education.
Okay.
But I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. Pbl, this is what I'm, advocating for. I mean, even here in my university, this is a big challenge, and this is also documented in research, not only at your school, but everywhere, internationally speaking. So probably let's get and talk later on about this, but I totally agree with you. Let's skip to the next point, because I think it's already 9:30, so let's move. Now, how is Pbl processed, right? Well, you have to make sure, according to the Black Institute for Education, cites, the reference here, you have to make sure that in the design, these elements figure in your project design, okay? I have added the first point. It doesn't figure in the definition of Black Institute for Education, but I thought it was important, which is the team constitution strategy, right? I mean, in other words, when you want to work on a project, you work in team. So how you constitute your team? Do you constitute it randomly, at random, or you specifically choose some criteria to create your groups? Let me share with you my experience. My experience, for instance, depending on the programs, but in the MBA programs, for instance, I do it randomly. Why? Because I tell my students that, we don't choose the person with whom we work. Suppose tomorrow you change your job. Okay, you find different persons show up, and maybe they have come out with rigid personalities. Maybe you don't like these personalities, but you are obliged to work with them. So how are you going to navigate with them? So you have to learn. Sometimes I intervene in some cases when I have students who are a wife and husband. When I have in my class a wife and a husband, I tell them, please take the opportunity to separate yourself, because you are together at home, you'll not be together here in class. So if it's random, it come out to be together, I separate them in different groups. Or sometimes you can find some students, some participants that work in the same sector. So I deliberately ask to exchange, to diversify sources of knowledge and experience. I separate them in different groups, right? Or suppose I have 3 persons or 3 participants doing finance, okay? I either at that time split them because I want the guy with finance could speak with the guy in marketing and the other in engineering. So I make it as diverse as. But if random from the start, give me, as multi, task and multi, skill as, groups, it will be okay for me, right? In the undergrad, it's a bit different because sometimes, specifically for instance, in engineering school, when you have some content areas that are important, like math, for instance. So when you constitute your groups, make sure that at least in each group you have, a highly achievable and skillful student in math, right? So that to balance, the process of learning, right? So this is my own strategy, but it depends, okay? That depends. Those who do it and randomly, those that do not do it randomly. Now, the second point is when you design, you have to fix, what we call the key knowledge or the key success skills. In other words, and this is another topic, by the way, because when you design or work out a syllabus or lesson design, you start by the learning objectives. And the learning objectives also, from an experiential point of view, you have to fix different objectives, knowledge objectives, abilities, and the one we talked about, social dimension, to connect the student to the real world, right? So you should be clear what are the key knowledge. And here you can, fix whatever skills and goals you want. Remember here that we have two types of skills: literacy skills, skills reading and writing, and transformative skills, critical thinking, teamwork, and so on. The third point, which is an important component, is you have to choose a challenging problem or question. It has to be challenging or a driving question. If we just, let me give you an example. How could we improve effective teaching? This is a challenging question. Let's work together to resolve it. How could we help, for instance, the poor, I don't know, in this community to get to school, for instance, right? So these are challenging problems that requires sustainable inquiry. The next point, that requires sustained inquiry, that requires research, that requires iterative, efforts. And here I will get back to the challenge. Authenticity. What does authenticity mean? That means that the problem has to be real. It should not be a problem related to the past or to a problem of somebody else. It has to be my problem. So I have to be engaged. And when I get home, I say, well, I find the problem. At least I'm contributing to resolve this issue, right? Then you have the student voice and choice. Well, remember when in the process, remember I told you that you should reward the process of learning, not only the result, okay? So in the process of learning, sometimes you would ask your student to present something. But remember, your students came to you with different learning styles. And there are around 4. So you have students that are visual. So they want to present something they want to see. You have other students that are auditory. They want to listen. And here maybe they could podcast or record something. You have something that are kinesthetic. They want to do something. And there are others who are reading or writing. They are at ease when they write, they summarize and present things, right? So you have to bear in mind that student has a voice and has a choice. You should not impose anything on the student. Otherwise, remember what we talked about, emotional connection. He will not learn, he will be blocked, right? Then we have reflection. What is reflection? This is, I think, a very, very important component. Reflection is at a certain point of time, you will ask a student, what did he learn? Sometimes we're doing things, it's highly enjoyable, yeah, but at a certain time, I will tell the student, what did you learn? And I would tell him, what you learn now maybe is to learn how to analyze, how to make choices among different scenarios. And here the students will fix the concept in mind. Remember, we are deep now. It will fix it. He will never forget it. right? So that part is important. Teachers' feedback too is important. And this is what we call formative assessment. So you have teachers who give feedback to the kids and to the student each time. But please, how to give feedback is important. You should be always positive. Remember, we're talking about emotions and its impact on the personality. So almost we have to give positive feedback. And I think in this process, there is no fail or pass. Everybody passes. Everybody passes. There's no fail or pass. So you have to give a positive reinforcement, positive feedback to your students. And at the end, maybe you could get students, well, let's try to see how you could arrange this and improve this, right? But you never come to say, well, this is nonsense. It is nothing. So the student will never do anything anymore. And if it was math, he would hate math forever. And he will hate you forever and the school forever. And we have many cases like this, unfortunately. We have cases like this, unfortunately, in our context, specifically in our world. At the end, you have the public product. This is also important. What do we mean by public product? That means when the students are working on a significant process to resolve an issue related to environment or to help the poor, you have to, appraise that. How you could do that is to, for instance, to allow, a big oral difference in public. And I would invite the parents. I will invite the mayor of the city. I will invite the prime minister, whoever. And here, the students, once back again to the emotional connection and social human connection, will never forget this moment. Because he is presenting something. He is bringing a solution. He's contributing to something real. Something he owns. And that's important ownership, something he owns. Does not belong to the teacher, neither to the school, to the student. So, and this is related to what we say in assessment. Assessment is not giving a grade or whatever. A grade, well, is important traditionally, but we know in reality that those who had less grades are the leaders of today. We know them, I know. But those who have great marks, GPAs, what they do? Maybe they're still looking for the cure or the vaccine. You see what I mean? So, now we have, to work on the profile, the personalities of our students, right? So how to assess Pba, right? I have to move a bit, that's only, okay. So let me just summarize, these are different techniques of assessment, but you can, main assessment. The main assessment for me is a formative assessment. When you assess in the process, each time there are milestones. You can get into the website and see the different milestones in Pbl. And in each milestones, you could give feedback to the student. All right? This is, okay, formative assessment. Then you can use the peer assessment. Sometimes also you can project, for instance, the works of the students, of the kids, and ask the peers to assess the works of their colleagues. That's important. And the teacher here allows them to do it, and sometimes even in a positive attitude. And this is the ways that we even, promote positive attitudes in class. How you control your class. This is another topic, by the way. But let me just share with you that in the master's degree in education delivery at the university, there's been a class of instructors of K-12 students have experimented, the Pbl, and they managed to shift a very turbulent school group of students from very turbulent to normal using this Pbl methodology. So allow them to participate. If they're making noise, They should do noise, but pedagogically. And then the other type of assessment, I just mentioned it a moment ago, let the stakeholders assess the work. Let the parents assess. Let the employers come assist. Let the main players, if they've been working with association, NGOs, okay, you can invite them also to assess the work of the students, right? And this is real assessment. It's not a mug. That means nothing. That means nothing intrinsically. But when a student is doing something and is recording it, he will keep it for the rest of his life, as all of you mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, right? Now, let's move to the challenges and the difficulties behind implementing this methodology. Well, I will just, I remember the intervention of a colleague saying that it's very challenging. I agree with you, it's very challenging. Because, you know, when we teach in a traditional way, we are, sitting comfortably, teaching something we used to teach each time, right? We teach, this is traditional way of doing things. And sometimes teachers, but not only teachers, everywhere, when you're managing a change process, people resist to change. But it's very difficult with teachers and with academia. Very challenging. You know, by the way, academic institutions have been through history the most, the organizations that have most resisted to change. Why? Because of the academia, because they have all the answers. Now, it's no more the case. They don't have the answers. Should they have, they could have come out or prevented the crisis of 2008, and they should come out with a cure today. So they're very challenging. And we are challenging now academia. Now, to the question whether this is going to be in or extracurricular. Listen to me, let me make it clear. Pba has to be a mainstream curriculum. It has to be mainstream because it is interdisciplinary and it is effective. Now, how you can do it? You can do it, as I've been saying here. I mean, you have to champion it. You have to look for more buy-in. I'm particularly in the second translate here, right? That means that you have to involve all the colleagues. You have to convince people around you. You have to also engage, the leadership of the school, the dean of the school, the president of the school, because without those, actors, you cannot go out with, go through your action plan or a change agenda. This process should be owned by the school. Actually, we assist at, some efforts done by some faculty, some teachers that want to innovate. But we want it to be scaled up. We want to be owned by the school, by the university. And to do that, we have, leaders to be engaged. We have to make it, mainstream of the curriculum. And the school and the university will gain a lot. Will gain a lot. This is research. This has been documented too, right? So let me get back to this slide. So there's many challenges, as I've said. So class management, for instance, control and pace. Sometimes some teachers want to try and, let me get back to those faculty or teachers that resist to this Pba. And when he gets to the class, he will tell you, well, that does not work, Students are, it's very difficult to control them. And, it's very difficult for them to come up with it, with the real answers and so on. So here at this moment, we have to provide the following advices to this faculty and to these teachers. We have to give up control to the student, not to the professor or to the teacher. With the PBL, you should not control anything. You have just to supervise and to facilitate. You have to allow freedom, because it's going to come through time. And if it takes 2 hours, you suppose you're expecting to take 2 hours, and you turn out that it will take more, so let it take more. You have to be patient. Patient. This is the word. It's not like when you're teaching math, teaching accountancy. You are teaching now an hour and you see result immediately. In PBL, it's a long-term process. Let me give you a metaphor. So, when you're watering a plant, you look at a plant, you're watering it, and you see whether the plant is growing. Well, you plant, but the plant is not growing immediately, of course. But if you water it regularly in 1 week, at the end of the week, when you get it back to see it, you will find it has grown. It takes time, right? So when it comes also to these students, to the faculty that are, so traditional in the mindset, I agree with you. And let me give you another anecdote. There has been, a professor of biology in the United States, and he was starting his course. And that professor of biology is highly innovative. He used PBA in the class. Okay, so he arranged the environment, groups here and there, and so it's a bit chaotic, disordered in the class. And then the dean is passing in the corridor. He wanted to talk to him, and he gets into the class, and he tells him, "Hi, John. Okay, when you have started the course, I will get back to talk to you." That means that according to the dean, the professor has not yet started the course. But in reality, the teacher was already in his course. So I agree with you. This is a question of mindset. We have a lot of efforts to do. This is why I've been arguing in terms of presenting to you all the arguments and all the solid knowledge to convince, all colleagues, and why not also, the leadership of the school to work out such effective change agenda, right? So you have to champion it. You have to champion. This is one of the challenges that PBA is not championed enough and not marketed in institutions, because we do want to stay in our zone of comfort, right? And here I talked about the accreditation in relation to what you said about the curriculum. Of course, we have to integrate it. And now there are reforms. For instance, in Morocco, we are revising the curriculum, and now we allow to integrate PBL as mainstream pedagogy. Now, if we really want, to promote that kind of methods of teaching and pedagogy in our schools, we have also to, to care for our teachers. We have to accompany them. We have to train them, right? This requires training, and training while being patient too. We don't expect to have results immediately as leaders, right? So PBA should be made part of the faculty's or teachers' objectives in terms of performance appraisal. At the end, we're talking to what you did. This is one solution. Involve, as I said, the leadership for more buy-in. So when the leader says, okay, we are now implementing PBL, you see, everybody will implement it. And as I said, teachers have to be patient and trust their student. Now, I am getting back to my first, slide. Education is what remains after one has forgotten what has learned in school. Now, I hope that you have understood better what these quotes mean. I think up to now, I have come over my presentation, but I let's discuss if you want, if you have any discussions or presentation, sorry, any input to inform the discussion more and more before ending this presentation. These are some references I added, right? If you want to dive into the subject, all right. But anyway, and this is my contact. If you really want to get back to me for any questions later on, if you want, I'll be ready to help. That's it. So please come on. Any suggestion? Any feedback? I think everybody is silent. What's the problem? I hope it's okay with everybody.
Thank you very much, Mr. Said. It was very, very interesting. Yeah. And it's going to be helpful for us to understand all that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Dr. Said, yes. I have a very strong feeling, and I may be absolutely wrong, and you may disagree with it, that we have just touched the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, sure. I agree with you, but see, this is just a discussion, by the way. This is a passionate, by the way, it's a very passionate topic, very passionate subject. Passionate in terms of, knowledge, but also in terms of practice. I do research, but I do research to enhance the practice of teaching and learning. This is why I earned my doctorate, and I'm still working to improve the learning and teaching in what I'm doing.
Dr. Said, one very important part of this presentation is that all of us right now are in a phase of transition, and transitions are never easy. Transitioning from the conservative and the conventional forms of teaching to one that is revolutionary. And of course, revolutions have always been very painful and not without bloodshed. So no matter how revolutionary this is, it has to happen, and change has to come in, and that will be done after the revolution, of course.
Yeah, sure. Peacefully and smoothly. Yes,
God willing.
Any other
I wanted to add on that the webinar was very good and informative, but it could be more interesting, and if you would have just given us a very small topic or a small thing to a project-based learning right now. So we could have seen how many people's, all of we are present, we would have give our different ideas. So we could have seen in actual the different approach in the webinar itself right now.
Well, as I've been telling you, we have taken more than 1 hour dedicated to this webinar. As I've been telling you, this is just, as you said, in cooking, it's just just an appetite, just to open your appetite, but it's not full covering of this topic and subject. I agree with you. We should have probably covered some real examples and allowed everybody but I didn't have much time. We moved 30 hours beyond what has been scheduled in advance. So as I've been telling you, this is a very passionate, but we could get back later on if you want. We can, schedule another meeting where we could, work on specific examples where you guys and the smart people once again, present some cases, real cases, and reflect on these cases and learn from them. It could be, yes, good idea.
Does anyone like to share before we close?
Anyone?
Thank you so much, Doctor. It was really nice and very informative.
Thank you very much.
A lot of knowledge and understanding, I got it. I was a part of one team, and they were already implementing this thing, but now today, it's now mostly clear for me, because I was a part of that when I was designing the curriculum for K-12. So I have found a lot of challenges during, I was not understanding much clearly. So today I got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Very informative. And the one thing I can add just suggestions. So for next time, if you can add one just slide in terms of the schools, that how that curriculum, if we can design a curriculum on PBL. So any format or particular that can be useful or in simply any project wise.
Let me, okay, I have included some resources, okay, and the presentation, and Malavan will send to you my presentation, by the way, okay. So you could use you know, get to the website, and you find, I mean, valuable resources, I mean, with templates and everything you have there, right? So we provide you smart people with all the tools. Now it's up to you to, you know, to implement them and to deploy them. You'll have everything. And if you have any question, do not hesitate once again to contact me, to contact Malavan. So
thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Said, for the great discussion and the processes you shared in the allocated time. Kudos to you, and keep inspiring all of us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
and in your free time, do read the chat, because we have been bombarding with the messages and everything. So that'll also assure you that we thoroughly enjoyed this session.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Me
you.
too.
Have
Me
a great
too.
one.
Me too.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed really the discussion, and I wish see you next time. So
Thank you another time. Bye.
Another time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Mr. Saeed.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hope to see you soon again.
I hope so. I hope so.
Please don't forget to email your name to get your certificate.
Sure, Malavan sir. Last time I had forgotten it.
No problem. Just send it to me.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Said. Thank you.
Send it in private or by email? How?
Sorry, say again.